Next up, attacks on Asian Americans have surged in the past year since the coronavirus first took hold in the U.S. And the former president started weaponizing racist phrases like these.
The Chinese virus. The Chinese virus.
The Chinese virus. Kung flu.
As of last month, Asian advocacy groups have found more than 3,700 cases of anti-Asian hate, harassment, and violence, close to 100 of them right here in Massachusetts. Most have been incidents of verbal harassment, often referencing China and the coronavirus, but more than 400 have been physical assaults. And so far in 2021 alone, there have been several violent attacks on Asian Americans, including a Filipino man who was slashed in the face with a box cutter while on the subway in Brooklyn in February, and a Chinese woman who was shoved to the ground in Queens a few weeks ago. They both survived. But sadly, not so for an 84-year-old Thai man who died after a man ran across the street and shoved him to the ground in San Francisco. Attorneys for the suspect there deny the attack was racially motivated, but the victim's family say they believe it was, quote, driven by hate. Just last week, the current president spoke out against such attacks.
Vicious hate crimes against Asian Americans who've been attacked, harassed, blamed, and scapegoated. It's wrong, it's un-American, and it must stop.
To that end, protesters have been holding demonstrations across the country, including right here in Boston, where hundreds came out over the weekend for a Stop Asian Hate rally. I'm joined by one of the organizers, Harvard student Doan Nguyen, and Robert Trestan. Robert's the executive director of the Boston office of the Anti-Defamation League. Gentlemen, thank you so much both for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Ryan, if I can start with you, what were you trying to achieve at this rally? What was your goal?
My goal for this rally was really to achieve that physical presence that I saw happening across the country. I was really inspired by similar rallies being organized in California and New York, and I just looked around me and saw nothing from Asian Americans happening here. I really wanted us to have not just a physical presence, but also a strong voice. And the strongest way to do that is to see people around you, people of different colors and backgrounds and ethnicities. We really needed to come together and see one another face to face. And so this was just an event where people who are incredibly distinct can come together and unite against the cause in solidarity and love and against Asian hate.
You know, Robert, I don't have the expertise that you do, but it seems to me that something like this was almost predictable when there's great tension and pain in the air. It is often, unfortunately, that certain people pick other groups of people to scapegoat. So this has replayed itself many times through our history, is it not?
Well, it certainly has. And what we're experiencing now is a spike. But it's not something new. In fact, we've been tracking an increase in hate crimes and hate incidents directed against the AAPI community now for close to a year. So what we're experiencing now begun and started with words and stereotyping months ago.
Well, when you say words and stereotyping, let me finish your sentences. I think you maybe intended from the then President of the United States. I have to say, as an observer, it is pretty clear to me that his relentless invoking of terms that were racist and deep from him inspired a lot of these people. Is that an unfair statement? Robert?
I think there's a lot of accuracy to that. In fact, one of the things we did was we tracked immediately after his diagnosis with coronavirus. We did an analysis on Twitter and social media and tracked an 85% increase in anti-Asian stereotyping related to targeting people from the AAPI community. So there's a direct correlation between some of the things he said and how people acted on social media. And
you
then
know,
the next
Ryan,
step,
back to I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Robert.
No, it starts with the words, then there's a social media interaction. And that leads to people actually committing physical violence against others.
You know, Ryan, Robert mentioned a minute ago, it goes back to at least a year ago, but it's pretty clear this goes back decades and decades in this country. I know in the Harvard Vietnamese Association statement that you put out around this rally, you said anti-Asian racism has always been present and pervasive. But the reality, as someone in the media, I know it gets far less attention than racism directed particularly at black Americans, correct?
I believe so, but that is not the focus as of right now, or that was not the focus for the rally. Although there have been actions committed by various individuals, we really want this rally and this event to be one of unity, because what the issue is the action, the behavior, and not necessarily something stemming from a community in particular.
You know, I want to ask you, Ryan, what the impact is on you and others in the Asian American community in this country. I want to play for you. 83-year-old Nancy Toe was attacked in New York last week. You'll first hear her and then her daughter. Listen, please.
Bleeding lot from the brain. It looks like, pumping out.
I didn't think it was so close to home, and now I'm afraid to go out, and my kid is afraid to go out.
I want to repeat what her daughter said. I'm afraid to go out, and my kid is afraid to go out. This trickles down to all Asian Americans in this country, no?
Absolutely. Watching that segment hurts my heart because I see her voice and her pain reflected in my grandparents and my little cousins and my little brother. So that hits very close to home and was one of the major reasons why I wanted to put this rally together.
Robert, what's the best course here? I think Joe Biden did himself and our country proud with his comments the other night. They were strong, and I think they had an impact on people. But what is the most effective thing that one can do to fight back, in addition to rallies like the ones that Ryan organized?
Well, number one, President Biden's statements were a sign of leadership, and leadership is critical at a time like this. So it sends the right message, and we need to encourage others to follow that lead. And it's important for communities to be able to heal. It's important for everyone to show solidarity within the AAPI community, but for others who may not feel the direct impact. And so solidarity is an important community action that all of us can demonstrate right now.
But I want to get back to what Ryan a minute ago didn't want to talk about, and I respect his decision. I think it's accurate to say that we in the media give much more attention to racism directed at other minorities, much more than we do to Asian Americans. If you agree, why is that, Robert?
Well, I can't speak for how the media are making their decisions, but the impact of racism and hate crimes targeting people in the AAPI community is actually very similar. When you speak with victims and communities, the impact, the hurt, the damage, the danger of certain language is all very, very similar. And there's another similarity that I think we need to keep in mind here, and that is not everything rises to the level of a news headline. So we may focus on those cases that become a front page story, whether it's in the black community or whether it's in the Asian community or in another community. But we know that people face this kind of bias and hatred in their daily lives all the time, and it just doesn't rise to the level of a statistic.
Ryan, I want to ask you what you think should be done. Robert said a minute ago, all voices should be heard. Here's a public service announcement from former NBA star Jeremy Lin.
Hate-fueled attacks on Asian Americans are disturbing. But why are we surprised? What do you think happens next in a society where we've normalized xenophobia at the highest levels? Don't overlook the pain those around you are experiencing on a daily basis. Let's put an end to this violence and hate together.
How do we put an end to this violence and hate, Ryan?
I definitely believe there are multiple approaches that one can take. There isn't just one solution. But something that does need to be done is humanizing Asian Americans, humanizing AAPI people, and understanding, listening to their stories, holding events such as a rally or a discussion or a forum that encourages people to see Asian Americans as equal, as of the same level, as deserving of a voice, and as deserving of peace as much as anyone else, because they are as American as anyone else. For me personally, when I shared my stories of my family's refugee experience at the rally, I do believe that it helped others to see me more as an individual and less of a face that is a statistic, less of someone who's an Asian just out there and not connected, because I feel deeply connected to my heritage and my people, but at the same time, I feel deeply connected to the American identity and the American diaspora. So the more we get people to realize that these are our peers and not some foreign entity, the more we can start giving Asian Americans a voice and seeing a decrease in hate crimes.
Ryan, Doan Nguyen, it's a pleasure to meet you. Robert Trestan, thanks so much. Good luck with your work, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.